Welcome to the Think Factory podcast. We got one question for you. What keeps you up at night?
I'm your host today, Chris Santomassimo, and I'm really delighted to sit today with Chuck Slingerland. Chuck is the Vice President of Sales and Service for Barberan Corrugated North America. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate the opportunity to be on the platform.
Well, we're always looking for interesting people, and you certainly fit the bill, Chuck. What I was particularly intrigued in, not only are you working for an interesting company with a long and rich history, but you've been one of the few folks that has gone from the manufacturer side, that is the printing or the packaging service provider side, and jumped to the other side of the table, which is working for a company supplying equipment and software. So, would love to hear about you and Slingerland. And Barberan. And you can take it away.
Sure. It certainly has been a very interesting journey. I think my initial background, my early years, I focused in the machining industry, which was very precision components. And that led me to a dotted line to going to work for a company called CSW Graphics. And that I spent 11 years there, and CSW is a provider of graphics and prepress for the packaging industry. So not only corrugated vendors, but also wide web printers, et cetera. And I had the opportunity to manage their national accounts. So companies like Nestle Waters, Boston Beer, Diageo, we were helping managing their graphics by supplying either prepress files or plates.
Some big volume customers too, right?
Yeah, they were very demanding. CSW is located in Ludlow, Massachusetts, with an operation in Rochester, New York, and Ohio, and again, very advanced, very niche manufacturer of plate and file solutions. And that tenure with that company had me introduced to Abbott Action Packaging. So Abbott was actually one of our clients that CSW served, and an opportunity presented to me to join their team to go from the pre-press side of it, as you said, kind of a dotted line, to now actually providing pre-press or packaging to the end customer. So that journey was for about 10 years, and 7 years into that journey, I'm going to use the term blessed. I was blessed with the opportunity that Sam, Glenn, and Gail are the three owners. They were looking at single pass technology. And we were introduced to Barberan through a company called Bennett Packaging. And I was fortunate because of my pre-press background. They asked me to be part of that initial discovery team. And my efforts there allowed me to grow from the sales side of packaging to really becoming the early adopter of bringing this technology into the plant. Had a wonderful team, still dear friends to this day. There's a core group of us that had to transform a business that was heavily dependent on litho labels, so buying labels on the outside, laminating them, die cut glue process, to transforming that into a company that actually eliminated all their label purchases. So within our first 3 years, we eliminated 100% of top labels. And this was with Barberan's Gen 1 technology. Abbott spent a lot of time and effort in looking at pre-press resources, working with companies like Significance out of the Toronto market, highly automated workflows. With single pass printing, your only lead time is your paper and your file. So if you can find a way to get those two components to the printer, you've really shortened the expectation on the client side. So 3 years into that, and Barberan approached me and asked me if I would be interested in supporting North America. And it was a challenging decision because Abbott is a family-owned business, and I was treated like family. But I saw this as an opportunity to grow, and it has certainly been a journey over the last 5 years. And to our earlier conversations, I think having a graphics and packaging background and understanding converting, not necessarily being an OEM or a capital equipment salesperson, has been a huge advantage for my customers and myself. Because when we're looking at technology, I know where they're coming from. I've walked in their shoes. I've looked at those decisions, the risk that takes involved. So I think the journey to get to where I am today it wasn't planned out, but the steps lined up to where without the pre-press and Abbott, I don't think I could be as successful as I am today in the OEM side. Or as you and I kidded, I moved to the dark side of the business.
Now, actually, that's where I started too in my journey through print and packaging. I started um, as the general counsel for AGFA, and I think it's a fantastic place to start. I did it the opposite in a sense, if you will. I started on the manufacturer side, but it's great for you because you know what it's like on the other side of that table. Really, you come to the table with really a full set of knowledge about the industry from both perspectives, and I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, it certainly has allowed Barberan and our customers to take a different approach when they're looking at the technology. Um, we've got a great team in Spain, and as you and I chatted about Barberan, it's 1929 was the founding year, and I challenge anyone to go look at an OEM and tell them that they've got almost 100 years of history behind them. And what happened with Jesus's grandfather, Jesus Barberan, they were Castelldefels is about 19 kilometers outside Barcelona, and in the early days they were true craftsmen. Their business evolved around metalworking, specializing in structural steel, ornamental ironworks, and then there was a turning point. I think it was 74. A company called Raquel SA closed its doors, and that's when Barberan made a big shift from ironworks ornamental into we'll call coatings and building equipment. So we go from 74 to 85, where we worked with a German company and started developing some printing developments. And then in the 90s, we became a really staple for international trade fairs for flooring, decoration, and wood packaging. So a lot of the flooring, if you buy at Home Depot today or Lowe's, that is digitally printed. And Barberan was truly the early adopter on creating that type of flooring. And now we move into 2007. So again, decades are going by here.
Right.
We introduced single pass to the industry, and that being the early adopter in single pass really gave them, I'd say, a foothold in the marketplace. Barberan's very unique because we're a machine builder. We're not an ink manufacturer. And being a machine builder, they identified we have metal packaging, deco flooring, deco, multi-substrate, and then we've even built some special industrial applications. We were on a call yesterday with a client that needs a specific UV coater. So really a very engineered, weighted company. I think today we're 225 employees, and I believe 40 plus of those are in our engineering group. So there's the manufacturing location in Castelldefels. We have 3 campuses. I always tell people in one campus, raw material comes in, and another campus is where you do your factory acceptance test of a device. So we are from machining, welding, fabricating, software engineering, assembly, wiring, components, pumps. We are the OEM. So we are the only ones in the marketplace that are fully integrated in that type of process.
That's amazing. When you start with the engineers at the core of your product line and your product development, um, that's really strong because they're able to sort of predict what your customers are going to need, and if they haven't predicted it, they can build it.
My colleague Kenny Spence says it always. We're engineered forward. So in the U.S. we have approximately 20 devices in several different markets, and probably 14 of them are Gen 1 technology. And Gen 1 was 360 DPI, so not as fine as printing as we are today. But Barberan, being innovative in engineering, has found a way now that we can go back to that early adopters and actually upgrade their equipment in field. So now they're relevant again. So, a single pass device is usually the number one or second highest cost an independent or an integrated company is going to invest in besides a corrugator. And so once you make that investment, it's very difficult, to, I'll say, double down. It's got a large footprint, so most facilities don't have the space. So that engineering viewpoint was great to allow those Gen 1 customers now to stay competitive in the market space.
I think that's interesting because I've seen other manufacturers, not all of them, but a number of them that they'll sort of keep you updated with software and certain aspects, but what they really want you to do is buy the next generation to replace Gen 1. You're basically coming in and doing the overhaul and allowing that customer to continue to be competitive with that overhaul and upgrade.
Yeah, it's exciting. We actually have our first client right now that we're actually in the build process right now, and later this year we'll do that installation. And I feel that once this rolls out, we'll have a lot of followers. So it's good from Barberan from a business perspective. We don't need to sell a brand new asset to an existing, a past client, but they do get the benefits of all our learnings. So we kind of look at a timeline. 2004 was like the development of single pass. I think it was 2011 awards won, 2013 FEFCO Best Innovation, 2016 AICC was Innovation of the Year. So this is still our Gen 1. And then in 2020, and I'm smiling because we're on camera, but this is where it really gets exciting, is that we moved to what we call the second generation of digital print, and that's higher than 400 nozzles or DPIs per inch. So in 2020, we launched our 2.0 print engine, and now currently, since 2020, just here in North America, we have 7 installations, and
Wow.
those are mainly corrugated, and then I have one specialty packaging company, and then so again, then 2024. Fujifilm approached Barberan. Fuji originally was selling the Onset Inca, which is a multi-pass device, and they made a different business decision, but they saw that in that graphics retail space, that there's a need for a single pass, a smaller device. So in conjunction with Fujifilm, Barberan's now developed what we call our HS series. It's actually branded the Acuity Aristo, which is part of the Fujifilm wide format line. And what's really unique with this business opportunity is that Fujifilm has developed an ink that doesn't require primer on a variety of substrates. So single pass, almost all the devices in the corrugated space, we're applying down a primer for dot adhesion, dot expansion, convertibility, known cracking. But in our new space with Fujifilm, there's some really unique elements, or I'll use ingredients in the ink that's allowing us to have like a multi-substrate, plastic paper, rigid or plastic. So we talk about silos. We have the Jetmaster series for the corrugated line, which is a high volume litho replacement technology. The HS series, which was developed and released in 2024. Our first installation is Linny Graphics in the UK, which is fully operational. They're a leader in that retail signage market. And then with having a higher resolution, and I'll use the term litho-like, we have been able to enter the metal deco market. So currently, we have 3 devices, 2 in South Korea and 1 in Poland, that are in a steel mill, and we're taking roll-to-roll metal, running it through our print engine, and that's becoming outdoor cladding, it's becoming appliances, etc. And now here in the United States, we're able to take the new technology, and we're looking at clients that are in the metal packaging space, because most of them have older litho assets, and trying to replace them is the volume of work has shifted globally to now. I think we have more SKUs and we have lower quantities, and usually those 2 key elements go against litho. Litho
Mhm.
has a longer setup. Once litho's running, though, on certain volumes, you can't beat it. However, to invest in a new litho line for, and I think it's Metal Star by KBA, it's a major investment where now with single pass and the opportunity for almost minimal setup, minimal waste, no plates, the market's seeing that digital is trending just in another area. So just the evolution's been interesting to watch. Just for my so 2016 at Abbott, we did our discovery. We finished our installation in January of 2017. I remember we sold our first piece. We all signed it.
Mm-hmm.
So just from 2016, now 10 years later, being in the market, it's very interesting to see how many applications single pass can provide.
Yeah, it sounds like it's really growing. I'm really impressed with all the different applications that you talk about. You talk about appliance printing, you talk about printing on metal and other difficult substrates as if it's no big deal. Apparently, it's not that big a deal for what you folks do.
Well, the team across the pond, the engineering team, the scientists behind it are the ones that have really allowed us find a way to take that very small droplet, have it fall in a very precise location, and be able to survive all the manufacturing processes, whether it's die cut glue, metal fabrication, flooring, wearability. So it's really a combination of software, science, and hardware. And then our ink suppliers, Barberan is, I believe, the only single pass supplier in the market that doesn't sell ink. It's an open ink market. We have qualified vendors. And that's been really interesting because I've watched the market. This platform forces the ink companies to be competitive and then to continue innovation. I've watched several ink chemistries change over the years as customers need to get better pigments, better color spaces. And if we were tied into a ink company or we're rebranding an ink, I don't think we'd have that leverage that our customers are benefiting from.
And you're not tied to any particular ink purchase, so that gives your clients and your customers a little bit more flexibility in terms of what they want to use, and it doesn't tie them down in any respect.
Yeah, we provide them a portfolio of approved vendors and allow them to interview and work that agreement themselves. So again, the ink companies are experts. They are looking at compliance. They are looking at how they're sourcing, photo initiators, pigments, etc. So Barberan, what we're good at is we're a machine builder. So we stay in our lane.
Yeah, and you give the customers the ultimate choice, which is interesting. But well, speaking of that, what are your customers really focused on when they come to the table to talk about an investment? How do they look at ROI and how do they look at making that ultimate decision to make a purchase?
Well, usually there's a problem they're solving. So they're either we're putting light on a challenge that's in the marketplace, or the customer, and really the independent market in North America, the entrepreneurship is amazing. And then again, we've got some strong key integrated companies that have great leadership. So they understand the challenge in the market is time. And really, I think the litho conversion has been the biggest wave for the first generation movers, that we need to find a way to produce a retail quality graphic with less touches and less obstacles and less waste. They're going to look at your platform. They're going to look at your uptime. Clients want to see what are your customers' experience. Right? Has it been positive? What is your service level like? What is that service experience? Again, this is a very complex device with hardware and software, and they want to make sure there is an infrastructure behind that to make sure that's running. We have several locations here in the United States that run 24 hours, and that is a demanding on any asset, whether it's a BOPS die cutter or a Jetmaster 2.0. It's a grueling environment, but fortunately, we've been able to test the time where that same company opened up another facility and duplicated that footprint. So we've got several clients in the States that have had several devices. I think that's a really strong statement on product reliability. When you touch on ROI, we're seeing most clients want to keep that ROI under 5 years. Some ROIs we've seen as low as 2.9. We had a meeting this morning with a graphics customer, and we were at 3.2 for years on that. But just trying to look at like ROI is our ROI platform is very comprehensive. Trying when we're comparing what technology are we replacing, and sometimes we're looking at multipass, and sometimes we're looking at litho. So looking at the costs associated with those compared to the costs associated with single pass. And there are costs to it. Again, you have in corrugated, we have primer, you have ink, you have a number of consumables. So there's less, but it's there. It's still present in the market.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a pretty short ROI time period to think about, 2 and 3 years. I've heard much longer time periods for some of the technology out there. And when we talk about ROI, in your mind, or what you're describing now, it's how long is it going to take me to pay off that press, right?
Correct.
Right. That's amazing. And the longevity is there too, apparently. If you're able to go back and overhaul a piece of equipment to bring it up to current standard, the ROI is going to be a flash when you talk about, the cost of the overhaul.
Correct. So first device in the US was installed 2015. That was with Bennett Packaging. And Bennett Packaging in, I think it was 2019 or 20, actually purchased a second machine for the same facility. So, and both those presses actually have been moved from the original location and reinstalled into a new facility, and they're still operational today. So, that's 11 years on an asset. The one that we're upgrading, that was delivered in 2019. That's a very advanced client that wants to have similar capabilities within the same plant. So, we've seen some ROIs I've seen at 5 years, but it's just interesting. The couple that we just recently did, where I was surprised we were under 4. But again, it's just what's the volume and what are we replacing?
Heck of a lot easier to shorten that ROI when you run it 24/7, right?
Yes.
That's amazing. And, software is certainly part of the equation. Barberan's got its own software. Talk a little bit about, the software that Barberan's developed and how it helps the ROI, how it helps the productivity for customers.
So our own architect design, we are at G7. I'm sorry, we're at G6 right now. So since the development, there's been 6 iterations. An interesting thing, some of our early adopters, they may choose not to upgrade software, but Barberan will always support it. So we'd never put the customer in a situation where it's end of life. So there's some clients that are running G4 or G5, and through a maintenance program, if there's any updates or bugs or fixes, it's taken care of, but you're not forced into next year you're going to an upgrade. So the intuitiveness of our latest software, with the use of APIs, we actually have a separate PC within the device, and we're actually collecting every bit of data off of every motor and movement to help work on predictability on maintenance, and then to give customers instant real-time feedback on ink usage, production speeds. And I need to thank one of our clients because they were the ones that came back to Barberan and said, we need this. So I think that talks about kind of a different corporation structure. We're listening to the customer and being able to be, I don't use the word flexible, agile enough to say, okay, we can shift here and meet that demand. With the new softwares, a lot of cloud-based technology, a lot of real-time data, some intuitiveness that, for example, if we set up a job to run on a certain set of parameters, and parameters could be line speed, it could be waveform, it could be voltage, it could be pinning, it could be UV LED curing. So there's all these attributes that go into, we'll call the formula. All that data is saved. So when the operator brings that job back up, it'll flag the client to say one of your settings is not correct. So just putting some more intuitiveness into the software to make our customers a job easier for them.
The predictive maintenance is no joke. The longer a machine goes down, and you have to wait for parts to be shipped or after a diagnosis is made. I mean, it's no secret that that is just going to be a cost, not to mention slowdowns and disappointing customers. You're able to really get ahead of it by shipping the parts that are necessary to the site, I'm assuming, and the service people come on and do the maintenance a lot more quickly than they otherwise would.
So these APIs are new to us within the last couple of years, so we're still learning that data process. One of the things I found in two of my roles are the sales and marketing side and conversations with people like yourself, Chris. And then it's also, I have the pleasure of managing North American service. And I'm able to balance both because Barberan, if you look at our device and look at some others in the marketplace, they're not built the same. Our assets are built more like a litho press or more like a flexo folder gluer with a very robust frame, a robust transport system, a robust print engine. So we don't normally have mechanical failures. Yes, at some point we're going to replace bearings and you could have a belt drive or a motor, which has happened, but I'm fortunate that our infrastructure is so rigid and in some cases overbuilt, which we're not the low cost producer in the marketplace. You know, there's other options for clients. We're more electronic savvy, so a lot of the support we're able to provide to our customers are remote in and solving a software challenge versus a mechanical. But again, the more data we collect from this predictability model will allow us to get in front of why is this motor running and pulling at a higher amp? Okay, there's a predictability. There's something going on there versus not knowing until the motor decides that day to stop.
Right. Yeah, that's key for sure, and to keeping that piece of equipment up and running, which is critical for sure. Um, and I think that from what you're describing, Chuck, it's the fact that the equipment is engineered so well, right? It's engineered. I mean, I want to call it. It's like built like a tank, in a good way. It's not going to break down every 5 minutes because it's not because it's under engineered. You guys have gone the opposite way to over engineer the product. The uptime is greater, and the software really is a complement to that.
Correct. And it's funny the words you use because I have a client on the West Coast and he literally he says, it's a tank. So our Gen 1 machines, they run somewhere, top speed is probably 60 meters a minute. Our new technology, we can run up to 120 meters. So you can see the improvement Barberan's done from an MSF output. However, I was with our chief technical officer last week in California, and we stood next to this device, and we just watched it run. It just, again, it was printing display graphics, definitely was meeting the needs of that client with that earlier resolution, but the machine first just was printing, feeding sheets, and the digital print manager's comment was, it's a tank. Now, the new technology, there's some more, you have to put a little more effort in your board sourcing. We're printing closer to the substrate. We're printing a much smaller droplet size, a dot. But now we've really got to a customer where you could take a litho display or a litho retail package and take a piece printed off our single pass device, and at the consumer distance, you would never tell the difference between the two technologies.
That's amazing, right? Yeah, and groups like the Printing United Alliance have talked about, this transformation from litho or offset to digital. But it sounds like you've gotten to that place now where the transformation has occurred. You've got the speeds to back it up, and you've got the quality to back it up.
I believe what the market needs next is, I think we need to see some of the consumable costs drive down. We need to be able to venture more into, so from a packaging side, we have litho, we have flexo preprint, we have digital preprint, we have direct print flexo. So there's all these different methods. We need to find ways to be able to take some of that volume. In Europe, they're already doing this. They're running a lot of high volume trade business and ags on digital versus flexo from a throughput standpoint. So I believe here in the States, we're still going to have to work through a transformation. The market right now is interesting. I'm humbled that we're in so many different markets because the graphics market and the metal market has a high level of interest today. The corrugated market is quiet. So people are trying to take advantage of the investments they made during the COVID period. A lot of companies saw that big ramp in volume, made investments, and now they're waiting for those investments and those ROIs to come to fruition. And I'm watching a lot of people just wait to see, is something going to change? In our earlier conversation, Barberan believes that we've got to a point where we don't think we're going to run faster than 120 meters a minute. And what we have going against us there is you have gravity or turbulence within the print engine. And then we have the limitation of the corrugated portion of the board. So it's really critical that speed or that's something corrugated companies are trying to improve on. And we don't think we're going to get smaller than a 5 picoliter droplet size. So we went from taking a 20 picoliter and that's a measurement of volumetrics to 5. So if you could just go 20 to 5, we now can paint with a fine paintbrush. And then our print engine or print head technology allows us to change that droplet to either from a fine paintbrush to a roller, depending if we need to do a large size. So Barberan sees the next evolution. We've maxed out on speed. We've maxed out on print head droplet size. Now we're going to see the innovation in software, higher uptime, again, predictable maintenance. That's really where the next generation is going to happen.
And when you talk about Europe having made this transformation a little bit, wanting to minimize waste and having a more green process where you don't have to have, for example, the flexo plates discarded and landfilled, that sort of thing?
I believe it's economics. Yes, sustainability is important to everyone until it costs. I find that interesting. As soon as someone says, "Oh, there's a cost to it," I think buyers in the packaging market are going to go back to what's my lowest way to produce a package. But I believe they're seeing just higher efficiencies on some devices, allowing them to run that printer with no setup times. It may run a little slower than a high-speed flexo, but job to job, it's kind of like the tortoise and the hare. At the end of the day, the tortoise is going to win because he's steady versus a lot of fast stops and starts.
Right. Yeah. So there may be, I guess, a sustainability byproduct of the digital process where you're not, going to use consumables that you can't, that you have to landfill, recycle, etc. So maybe it's an accidental thing, but it's certainly there.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. And when you talk about the software developments, what are we going to see from Barberan this year in terms of the next release or the next improvement besides what you talked about already?
So currently, engineering is working on G7. We're probably a year and a half away from a release. So really not at a point to be able to share what some of those features and benefits are going to from a proprietary standpoint.
Right.
Again, just how are we processing files faster? How are we at the RIP level? How is the interface for the operator of the press? What controls does he have? How do we make it more intuitive and more of a simple workflow? What could be considered complex?
Yeah, just increasing efficiency that way.
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, where can we see you and learn more about Barberan over the next few months?
Well, I am available to virtually meet any client or spend any time on their site. I always feel the best process is discovery. Instead of trying to walk into a client and start talking about Barberan technology, our past, is really trying to learn the client and understand what their needs are. Again, I refer back to my business partner, Kenny Spence. Barberan, I believe there's 24 different options. So when we go and sit with a client and start talking about what is your need or configuration, we don't have a set printer sitting on a shelf. We're gonna custom build the line to your specific needs. Of course, we have a standard line, which we've duplicated, but it's more of a consultative approach to the customer and what problem are we solving, and so what technologies do we need to implement. But I am available. Again, I'm big on LinkedIn. Can contact me there if someone likes some more information. I think our next event is the AICC Spring Meeting in California. So that's our big industry event, which seems to draw a lot of senior executives from the packaging market, as well as meetings like you and I are having today via Teams.
Fantastic. Well, we'll definitely share all your social media coordinates when we publish the episode. But I would encourage anybody to just have a conversation, create a relationship, and talk about what's keeping you up at night and what problems can we solve together, for sure.
It's a journey. So at some clients, it's 2-3 years from the day we meet till it makes sense for that investment, and others are a little faster. But I'm so humbled, Chris, that you reached out to me. I really enjoyed looking at your last episodes that you've done, and it's such a broad spectrum of data you're giving to people. So again, thank you so much for this time to share Barberan.
Well, I should thank you. What we try and do on the podcast is, and what I think you have in common with the other folks we've interviewed, is every one of these folks is passionate about their work, whatever segment of their business that they're in. They're passionate about their people, and ultimately passionate about serving their customers. And you check all three boxes for sure.
It is about the customer, isn't it?
That's where it starts, and that's always where it has to lead, right?
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you so much, Chuck. And thanks for joining the podcast today. This has been Chuck Slingerland, who's the Vice President of Sales and Service for Barberan North America. And this is Chris Santamassimo from the Think Factory podcast. We'll see you next time.